Iceland. A landscape so rich with beauty, it can often be confused as a land of fairy tales. Glaciers that can stretch beyond the horizon, mountains that leave one breathless, active volcanoes, the birthplace of land on Earth. There is little that will not captivate you about this beautiful place.
Are you sure about that? Because I'm pretty sure we didn't come to see nature, we came to see some League of Legends. So welcome everyone to another episode of Picks to Watch. We're going to be looking at some fun and interesting champions that could be making their way towards MSI. So without further ado, none of this nature stuff, let's jump straight into it. You've heard about the volcanoes in Iceland, now Reykjavik needs to be prepared for a rumble in the jungle.
Just watch me.
A number of champions have had their jungle clears buffed, and Rumble is living up to his mechanized menace nickname as his updated overheat passive grants attack speed and percentage health damage, while his E now shreds magic resist. No amount of aloe vera will help with that burn. While the Yordle can still mech the top lane work, his lack of innate escapes leave him vulnerable, and his trading pattern often setting everything on fire is definitely not fine when it comes to wave management. He is much safer in the jungle, where overheat gives him a fast clear and he has a whale of a time setting up ganks with the slow from his harpoon and with the bonus movement speed of his W, especially if he takes Predator. Gotta go fast! Rumble can be a very strong duelist in the right comp, particularly in 2v2s. If you can't handle the heat, get out of the fight over Scuttle. But it's in the mid game with one item and completed boots that has Rumble spitting more fire than an LEC rap battle. He deals a ton of damage, and his ultimate can truly be a great equalizer in teamfights. It's not that his damage falls off in the late game, but it becomes increasingly harder to land. Good kiting and crowd control can extinguish most of his threats. His ultimate is still a powerful tool, but carries can melt through his scrap armor. If you see a Rumble go in without his team, you know the Gundam done goofed. His typical itemization prioritizes Sorcerer's Boots, Night Harvester and Zhonya's, while his runes revolve around Dark Harvest and the Sorcery Tree for as much damage as possible. Next, whimsically skipping her way back into pro play contention, it's Lulu.
Pleased to meet you.
Melee engaged supports have dominated the bot lane in recent times, but that could finally shift with Lulu support. Though I'd love to see her in the bot lane, the reality is we're more likely to see a wild growth in her play rate in top and mid, as Lulu continues to be one of the most versatile flex picks in the game following her recent buffs. The Phase Sorceress turns hyper carries into super duper hyper carries, so if solo lane AD carries like Tristana and Lucian continue to dominate, Lulu is going to have a very good time. Lulu is the queen of utility, with a royal selection of supportive tools at her disposal. She offers crowd control, buffs, shields, and she can even turn enemies into adorable little critters. Down one don't look so scary when they're turned into squirrels, do they? Okay, maybe a little bit. The recent buffs to her Whimsy ability have given her more strength in lane, especially when paired with an AD carry, so we could see some powerful bot lane duos return, maybe even a Joggermaw comp. But the purple support also works great with certain junglers, as bruisers like Olaf become unkillable killing machines. Even on her own, Lulu is solid in lane and is often picked into champions like Gangplank and Gnar, as she can farm from long range and escape using her speed boost, shields, and her ultimate in a pinch. But even after the buffs, enchanters are a little weaker in the early game. While they offer tons of utility, that often comes with levels and items. It can be difficult to utilize their strengths until later in the game. Positioning is crucial. While Lulu can practically turn her teammate into a god, that comes at the sacrifice of her own protection. Lulu is squishier than a rubber duck, and you can't help your ally if you're dead, so she needs to ward up the flanks and stay as close to her carries as possible. When it comes to runes, Guardian or Aerie are the usual keystone choices, depending on comps and personal preference, with Inspiration taken second either way. Lulu will build either Moonstone or Shrelias depending on the preference. Typically, you'll see that followed by Ardent Censer and Chemtech Putrefier, though Staff of Flowing Water may be prioritized depending on the situation. Finally, everything has fallen into place for her to take over the jungle. It's Morgana.
I am bound, but I will not break.
As mentioned before, a lot of champions had their jungle clears buffed, and Morgana is one of them. Even after her nerfs on 11.9, most struggle to match her clear speed. And on top of that, Morgana will still land on her feet if she falls back into her support role. Morgana works best when her lanes have crowd control, so she can easily land her Dark Binding, which roots the target for longer than our players spent flying out to Iceland. But even without additional CC, her ganks can be effective. Sometimes the threat alone is enough. Morgana is very good at mind games. Damn it, she's in my head. Also, Morgana is in heaven around objectives, as enemies trying to defend turrets or face check neutral objectives will walk straight into a binding and earn themselves a one-way ticket back to the fountain. Meanwhile, Morgana's ultimate is her ace in the soul. She becomes much more powerful at level 6 as she can force flashes with ease and use her black shield to chase those that rely on CC to escape. While it's rare for her to land a 5-man ultimate, it is still a very strong tool in teamfights, as those who escape are still zoned away from the fight and those that don't are probably dead. To top it all off, while she doesn't have as much utility as other supports, her black shield becomes increasingly useful later into the game, as the anti-CC tool gives her team even more options. With good scaling damage, utility, and a fast clear speed, Morgana seems to tick all the boxes a jungler could want. However, her weak early skirmishing can be taken advantage of. She relies heavily on landing a binding, and even though it has a huge hitbox, landing it against other pro players is not so easy. Trust me, not all pros are good at landing skill shots. Also, while Morgana does deal a lot of damage, it isn't reliable, so she needs somebody that can either make the most of her setup or allow her to follow up others' CC. Dark Harvest is her usual rune choice, and Morgana tends to run Hellblade as the slow makes her binding easier to land. For the most part, she'll prioritize Liandry's and combine it with Zhonya's and Demonic Embrace for more consistent damage and survivability. That does it for this episode of Picks to Watch. If there are any fun or interesting champions you think could be making their way towards MSI, be sure to go into the comment section below and let me know. MSI starts on the 6th of May, and you will not want to miss it. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Oh no! I was not expecting that. So good.